One. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Sea Brigade. I'm Ken.
I'm Emily.
Today we're talking about the True Detective Season 2, Episode 8, or the True Detective Season 2 finale, Omega Station. And before we dig into the episode, I thought maybe we can dive into some muddled, random thoughts maybe about the whole of Season 2.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I did not like, I just like, ah, just.
Yeah, I want to throw this out there because like a lot of what you would call the season two, you're calling season 2 apologists. I'll just call them fans of season 2. A lot of the way people frame it is that an argument I saw was that if season 1 didn't exist, we'd all would love season 2. But
I don't think so.
I take problem with that, and I also take problem with the fact some people think that we keep comparing it to season 1 and its flaws to season 1. Where I think the flaws with season 2
like us specifically, or like people.
Not us.
Oh, okay.
No.
I think that it's just flawed. It's a flawed show, regardless of whether it was season 2 or season 1. It's a flawed show.
I'll say the other side in this war of words is like, why can't you guys admit that season 2 sucks? And that's a little bit weird too, because if people like season 2, that's completely their own thing. And this point of you have to admit that it sucks is weird.
Yeah.
Though I will say, if your ears don't perk at some of the dialogue, it's funny. Like I think some of the dialogue is maybe. I guess I don't know. Can something be subjectively bad or objectively bad? Like some of the dialogue, or
I think I really think that a lot of it just has been. There was one episode where it was really good. Maybe it was like 6 or something, or like Vince Vaughn wasn't ridiculous and things were actually good. I think it has to be 6. That's the one also where Annie went to the orgy. That was a great episode.
Yeah, and one of the things I was thinking about when I was trying, because this is Friday, we've had a lot of time, or at least I feel like I've had a lot of time to.
Yeah, I watched it on Monday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of time to think about season 2, and I think it's funny when you look at season 2, episode 6, and the amount of like energy that was coming out, and like it completely dissipated in 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways it's realistic, like, but a part of me wishes, and what the show is different from what I wanted, so that's not a fair thing, I guess. But like, when they rode off into the moonlight and Ray's Dodge Charger, and they had the papers, and it looked like things were finally going their way. And then it was just like, oh, both of you guys are fugitives. Davis is dead. I don't know how she's dead, but she's dead. Or why she's dead, or how anyone caught on to her secret thing.
I think that what kind of bothered me the most about like what events happening at the end of episode 7 and then episode 8 is that it just felt so disjointed. I felt like episode 8 had really very, very little to do with what came in episodes like 6 and 7, which were the best episodes of the season. Paul's death was really inconsequential. They mentioned it like offhand, and then like it's like as if he didn't matter. You could have taken his character out of the show, and literally nothing would have changed. Because even though like he gets that awesome death scene like that, and it's still so far removed from the main plot of the show that if Taylor Kitsch's character did not exist, nothing would have changed. Which is a problem.
I want to throw this out there too, because I think I mentioned it offhandedly and maybe even jokingly in last week's podcast. To go back and listen, I said something like, I can imagine that scene with Paul's mother and his girlfriend in the motel is the last we see of them. Like I imagine that there's a version of the finale where we don't address that, and that was and that's what ended up happening. Like that really was our last.
Well, we do see a little glimpse of them, like with the next to like the Paul Woodrow Memorial Highway sign.
I did not even if they were at that.
They were,
memorial, I didn't even
with like the baby, yeah. So that's where they got out of the room. But yeah, it was just like I I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated. I watched that episode and I was just frustrated. It was just not good.
Yeah. So, I want to. I did prepare like one short thing, which was immediately after watching the finale. I think the words I texted you were like, "It's good" or "I liked it."
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that out there. Is like I came out of the finale like initially satisfied, and I think a part of it, like I was leaning over the entire time. I was on the edge of my seat, even though at the time my seat was a beanbag chair on a vacant floor. And when I went online and saw the reactions pouring in, I realized I wasn't disagreeing with what people were saying. When people were picking out plot holes or things they didn't understand or things that they were angry about, I'm like, oh, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the few times where an initial good reaction has over time aged into a bad one. Because I feel like almost always my reactions, if they do anything, they get better over time. Like I get used to that instead of liking it less.
Yeah. See, like my initial reaction, like even when I was just watching it, I was, I didn't like it, and some of the stuff was just so ridiculous. Like, what's it? Oh, the like. When it cuts to like the shot of like Ray's phone and it's like message failed to send, I was like, come on, like that's so bad. And like just even the end where like Annie and Jordan are now like living in Venezuela with nails, and like Annie's got a baby now, and like Jordan can't have a baby but she's helping Annie take care of their baby, and I'm just like, come on, man, come on. Like Annie deserves so much better than that.
I agree, except that was giving me a happy feeling.
Really?
There was something I was like, okay, but like, I mean, I guess we'll get to it soon, or maybe not, since we have 87 minutes of material to talk through, and taking notes.
But
I'm
I
looking
feel like
now.
just so much of the material was just like, I mean, I hate to use words like that, but it was just such garbage. Like it was just not. I mean, so okay. I know a lot of people were saying, like, as a counter to, like, because I was one of the people who was just, like, really, like, it's these twins who are, like, behind all of this. We saw them, like, literally once. Or Erica, or was her name Erica?
Yeah, we saw Erica we saw twice, and Leonard
once. They look nothing like those kids in the picture, by the way. But anyway.
Something I needed to throw out there, too, is, like, I don't know if the internet ruining television, because like when the set photographer had a prominent speaking role, everyone immediately he was on the subject board. Like
right, that's true.
And I don't know if the same was true for Errol.
Right, I wasn't keeping up with Reddit. Me either. I mean, I think that too. Like, I think they just did a better job with integrating Errol into the story, because like, in the first episode, we find out about the green-eared spaghetti monster, and it's just, like, tossed off. And then we see him again at the school on Pelican Island. And then at the end of episode 7, we see
he's talking to.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, a part of me thinks that even if I was tipped off to, like, if someone thought, hey, the groundskeeper, he looks creepy, he might fit the description. Even if someone threw that idea out there, I don't know if I would feel cheated of like my Who's the Killer mystery the same way I kind of do here. And something that I was listening to this podcast on Bald Move about True Detective, and they were comparing the gotcha moments of season 1, season 2.
Okay.
And like season 1, it's Marty connecting the green paint on the house with the green ears, and they go and talk to the people at the house, where in this, like, it didn't connect them directly to Errol, but they started asking new questions. And this one, Ray was just kind of like, oh, wait a second, we talked to that set photographer guy. Like, he did. He's like, and we saw him talk to each other, and I was like, did we? Because I think even to your average watcher, like, the exchange between Erica and Leonard happened in the distance or far away. Like, it wasn't...
Right. It was completely inconsequential.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I think that we were kind of, like, maybe misled into thinking that the bird guy was Burris, because she said it was, like, the one person said it was, like, a tall, skinny, guy, and...
Who gave her the items to pawn.
Yes, and had those riot shells, and... it's never really explained exactly how Leonard has those that police equipment.
No.
So it's just kind of like, it's like...
You're right. Yeah, there was a more interesting. There's a more interesting concept in that, because Ray said, Ray says, like, the only people who could have shot me with these rounds. Oh, airplane crossing.
Yep, airplane.
I hope the microphone picks it up. Otherwise, it's going to be an awkward moment when I stop my train of thought to talk about an airplane.
Yep.
I kind of like the atmosphere of. Are you outside?
No. Oh, inside. Yeah, but just planes are very loud here.
Yeah. Anyway, so Ray says, only a cop could have, and like that led to, I think, a really interesting idea that maybe, the true detective of the season, the Raven, was going to be this rogue cop or vigilante.
Yeah, that's pretty much who I thought it was going to be, until people started throwing out the set photographer, and I was like, oh, maybe.
And I don't dislike the idea of kids getting revenge on who murdered their parents,
right.
But like Leonard is, and we'll get to it soon because we've been talking for almost 10 minutes about this, but like Leonard is such a loser in a lot of ways, and like
it's just not even in an interesting way. Like, Errol was terrifying. Yeah, Leonard was just weird.
I think the Raven was intimidating.
Yeah, the Raven started out being really cool, and then the Raven, after he shot Ray, I guess, he stopped being really, like, relevant.
Well, and I think one of the most frustrating things was that he switched masks.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to, I want to say episode 3, or maybe it was 2, I guess it might have been the end of 2, one of the things I said was, I don't know who burnt down the car, but I know it wasn't the Raven. And then I made that guess because I'm like, something about the motives didn't, like, I mean, I guess it makes a lot of sense that the Raven would burn the car he was driving but like, why switch the mask other than to confuse the viewer? Like,
yeah.
Because, like, I mean, if he was wearing the Raven mask, would that connect too many dots? I mean, I don't know how it would.
Right. I don't know.
Because, like, when they're chasing him, they're like, that was him, that was the guy. So I don't know why, because the white mask wasn't as scary as the Raven mask, and then, I don't know.
It's just, everything felt just very convoluted. Whereas, like, last season, Rust and Marty did some, like, actual detective work. I feel like there was very little of that this season, which is really weird.
I like, again, this other podcast I was listening to, they like the word rushed for season 2. Not just in what happens in the show, which I feel like rushed is a good word for it.
Yes, I agree.
But, like, also Nick Pizzolatto putting together this kind of half-baked story in 9 months rather than True Detective season 1, which might have been his life's work. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah, there's a lot of what True Detective season 2 isn't, but maybe this is a good place to start down the notes. Of which I've written almost 3,000 words about what happened this episode.
Wow.
I think that's the difference between handwriting it and typing them, is that when I handwrite stuff, I look at some things that happen and go, there's no way I'm putting that on paper. I'm not wasting space. But when I can just type it, everything goes down. So this episode starts with Ray and Annie exchanging their stories after having sex.
Yeah.
Which is something I liked, because they were refusing to open up about their stories, and that's what kind of started them to, like, all right, now there's this awkward silence, and now I'm just going to touch your hand. And so I kind of like that after the sex, they're now opening up about everything. And then one of the things Annie is describing, like, this pride she had when she was getting to the van with the stranger. And I understood what she meant, because when you're young, sometimes have this pride with you doing something that makes you feel adult or like a little badass, or you're breaking the rules. And it's really upsetting how that turned out for Annie in this scene. And I guess something about that also describes why, like if she feels sick, about that feeling, that totally explains her attitude towards sex, towards what her sister does and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another thing. I was like really disappointed that, because Annie's sister and her father were actually really interesting characters, and none of them in the finale. They just. I mean, I guess it makes sense that they are gone, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of wish we had some sort of closure in like where they were. Yeah, in like 87 minutes of TV, we couldn't have seen like just one shot of them like, I don't know, somewhere.
And like Elliot Bezarides ended up like his big revelation was being upset about being a hippie, but he never like his Panticapaeum was just a coincidence, really. In all of this, it's just a place where Casper met Vera, but Vera really didn't do anything except point them towards Tasha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess Vera identified the girl in the picture as Laura. But
yeah, I guess I still felt that like, I mean, I would say that the season's like emotional climax was, Annie escaping from the orgy. But I feel like even though that was an awesome episode and that was a great scene, I feel like in terms of like pointing us towards the end, I feel like it was very kind of inconsequential to the story because it started out trying to figure out, okay, who killed Ben Casper, but it became so much about these diamonds that like, I don't know. I feel like it tried to be too much and it should have just tried to do less.
Well, yeah, as far as big sequences that ended up really, what would be the word? Summing zero. Like that shootout in episode 4 was like me and my roommate when we were watching that we were at the edge of our seats, but and I was scared for everybody, but it was just a ploy by Burris and Holloway to make sure that Teague died, but to kill as many people in the process and end the investigation. Which boy. That's one way of doing it is to, agree to send your cops into a shootout or into a gang's lair where you have tipped off the gang. But it's, yeah. And none of the Santa Muerte stuff really mattered in the end. Like Casper had a Santa Muerte statue in his home. In those, the Mexican gang, like there was a guy who said like, when Frank was torturing the guy for information on Irina Ruffalo, he's like, this ain't a game like you thinking, but it was a game like we're thinking. It's exactly the cartel. Like there was like none of the spiritual stuff mattered when they rode up on like Lito Amarillo and he's about to die. He's talking to like the Lady of Death, and none of that mattered. I feel it feels really. It's funny because you and I feel like when if anyone goes back and listens to our Broadchurch podcasts, like Broadchurch is by no means a upbeat show, but our attitudes in Broadchurch, like, we're leaps and bounds happier. And this moment never happened in Broadchurch where I looked at my notes and I thought, right now I'm like, what's the point about talking about how Ray felt when he killed the guy he thought was his wife's rapist?
Exactly. I think the people were a little harsh on Broadchurch season 2. Yeah, it wasn't season 1 at all. This is another example of a show just not being the same as the first season. But it wasn't bad. I think once people got used to the fact that season 1 wasn't season 2, they started to realize, like, okay, this show isn't bad. It's just very different. Whereas in this season, with True Detective, season 2 just yeah, it's not season one, but it's also just not a good standalone show. It's very
Mm-hmm.
convoluted. It was rushed, as you said, and it just feels really half baked, and like it had the potential to be something good, but it just didn't have time to develop anything really.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really felt like, the one thing that maybe felt like reasonably like developed, like had an arc, was like I guess Ray's arc with Chad and his wife, but like that was not great, and like it was
Yeah.
so stupid of Ray to go to the freaking school to see his son. Like it was just so stupid. And that's another thing.
I mean,
Like,
it made sense. I mean, I like what people say where it's like if and we need to get to the Oedipus stuff soon, but
mhm,
like we're not like when like Ray does have this tragic flaw, right?
mhm,
That like he does love this kid,
mhm,
and that is what does him. It's what kills him in the end is that he wanted to
mhm,
visit Chad one last time.
mhm.
I feel like you know how who is it that's looking through the pictures of him and Chad? It's Chad's wife, right?
Yeah.
If I had seen
Well,
those
no,
in
no, it's not
episode
Chad's
one,
wife. It's Ray's ex-wife. Yeah.
right?
Nope.
Yes. Um, yeah, Ray's ex-wife. I feel like if I had seen Chad, like Ray, like being really like a loving father,
Mhm.
and seeing how that never like I don't know, having those pictures in episode one would have helped
Uh
because
huh.
I don't really like I don't really trust that in episode one that you really know that he loves Chad as much as because in that episode it's all about like oh he's in denial about Chad not being his.
Yeah, I think that just the whole Chad storyline was weird too because you figure where it started was with Ray like beating up what's his name and
Yeah,
like yelling at
Aspen's
Chad and calling him like
father.
a
Yeah,
pussy and whatever. It's just
yeah.
that's totally not how he treats Chad for the rest of the season. Yeah, he's not like really nice to him when he wants to watch Friends, but he's not like abusive.
No, and like
It just doesn't fit.
it doesn't. There's the part where it doesn't fit, and it's like the I had something about the Chad story.
Mhm.
Well, I okay. Here's what I was gonna say was like like by the time we get to episode 8 and Ray's parenthood is still in question, like when it's been mentioned over and over that people don't think Ray's the parent,
Mhm.
and when Ray confronts the rapist and says he doesn't look like him, like the only dramatic conclusion we can come to at the end is that Ray must be the parent, and that's the deep
Yeah.
irony of his. But like, I don't. I guess
Yeah.
Ray's got super. Uh, his seed is strong. I
The
guess
seed is strong.
it's
It just all feels like again. I know you have a ton of notes and whatever, but it's just
something
like
feels all for naught.
it just feels exactly. It just feels so pointless. Like, what are we? It just feels kind of pointless to me to like think about going through scene by scene and talking about like because it doesn't nothing really matters.
Like, okay, if we were gonna move on notes, I wrote down like when Ray admitted that he hadn't had sex in years, and then he was like, "Yeah, I could tell." I thought the cheap answer was because it was bad or awkward, but she says you were making up for lost time.
Mm.
That's a moment early on, and I really liked. It kind of feels like I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not the show is not a complete failure if I enjoy parts of it, and if I
Mhm.
think there's good television in season two. Um, but it's hard to recommend season two.
Yeah, I can't. Part of me like if we hadn't been podcasting this, I think I might have given up after episode like 2 or 3. And I probably would have waited until like the rest of the season aired and been like kind of seeing like, oh, is it worth watching? And I think the answer would have been no. However, then I would have missed out on episode 6, which is genuinely a really good episode. I would put it, you know, when you're ranking all the episodes of True Detective, it's got to be in like top 4, maybe top 3, maybe I'd say like top 4, I guess, because like maybe it's knocked down just a bit because of the fact that nothing matters, nothing means anything. But yeah, it was a genuinely good episode of television.
Yeah, like it reveals everyone who's connected to the conspiracy, which would be really cool if any of them got caught.
Exactly. See, the thing that bothered me about some people's reactions to the season 2 finale, where people are like, okay, well, like, you know, it's the opposite of season 1, whereas season 1 ended on this very hopeful note. The point of season 2 is to show that sometimes like things are meaningless and whatever. But I'm like, I don't think that's the point. Yeah, and I also it's not good writing. Like, maybe sometimes things are pointless and they don't work out and like they're meaningless, but like I don't want to watch 8 hours of a show about how things are meaningless. Like, I can figure that out in my own existential crisis. Like,
well, the thing is, it's like I think Pizzolano came to the same conclusion twice in a row. Where the detectives didn't uncover everything, but they didn't even catch anybody. Like,
right.
Like everyone who came to justice through death.
Yeah.
Like, Holloway got shot, Osip got shot, McCandless got shot, if you know who McCandless is.
Yeah, no.
The guy from Catalyst got shot.
Ray,
some gangsters got shot.
Ray got shot. Frank got shot.
Do I care about Osip getting his, though? Like, he's just a gangster doing gangster things. He's not really part of the conspiracy.
Right. See, I think
it's Chasani and Burris who we'd like to see come to justice, and that doesn't happen.
Right. And you know, it's, I guess last season probably had, you know, there wasn't really very much loss of life in the first season. You know, people who died were obviously, okay, so I mean, there were obviously all the people who were the victims of the Tuttle Childress ring, but of like characters we saw on the show, no one who we like cared about died, I think.
Well, and like one of I think the strong differences between like why season 1's ending doesn't make you entirely upset is because the killer got caught,
right?
And like the Tuttles are more like, they're like the power structure that protected that,
right?
But and as much as like, you know, Russ would like to bring everyone to justice, it's nice that the killer got caught.
Yes.
This doesn't really have a killer. Like, the killer this season was trying to bring people to justice.
Yeah.
And like, and arguably, I think the person everyone would have liked to have seen get caught the hardest is probably Burris by the end.
Yeah, and he's still out there.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, again, also one of the differences between the season 1 and season 2 finales is that, you know, at the end of it, or even before the end of it, you could tell that our main characters, like, they grew as people. They, you know, obviously Russ goes through the biggest change, which is, you know, and it's not like finding Jesus or whatever, like, made people really upset about the ending in season 1. It's that he finds some reason to carry on with his life, and he kind of realizes that there's still this force of love that's surrounding him, and that he has experienced love, and that love is still with him, even though the people who loved him are not. And even Marty comes to realize his mistakes, and he understands, like, even though he kind of like puts on this front in the interviews, you know, that like everything in his life was fine, you know, it's he realizes that, you know, he goes and he thanks Maggie for raising their children, and he's, you know, one of the most heartbreaking moments of season 1, I think, is like the fact that he's genuinely surprised and happy that his ex-wife and his daughters came to see him in the hospital. You know, he's like, I didn't think you guys would come, and he's got this smile on his face, and he genuinely is surprised that they came. And I think he realizes that he was not a good man, and he understands that about himself. And I think, I mean, Annie definitely has changes to her character as she progresses in the show. She's by far the most developed character, and the most realistic, and the most, you know, enjoyable to watch character. But, like, you know, Frank, I guess he has minor changes. Paul has absolutely no change and is completely inconsequential. And Ray, even too, I mean, what did he... Not every show needs to have character growth, but you do like to see some sort of point to having these people on your screen. I don't know. It just felt so, again, just pointless.
Yeah, a part of me is remembering how much every everything mattered.
Yeah.
From like Marty's affair
Mm-hmm.
and like attacking the person.
Yeah.
I forget who he was sleeping. Like there was a lot of things that mattered
Yeah, that's a good point.
where like Ray beating up Aspen's dad could have mattered more.
Yeah, it's
Rather than just sparking like it like you could say that Ray's actions in episode 1 are what sparked all the custody stuff,
yeah.
but that was also
But even so, the custody stuff isn't really what mattered in that season.
and things kept going back and forth. Like Ray was like, I'm gonna fight this.
Mm-hmm.
I need money to fight this. No, I'm gonna let him go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have a drunken rager, and then I'm gonna give my kid this thing. And this is the last I'm gonna see of him. Yeah, it just things volleyed a bit
Yeah.
instead of
I don't know.
things volleyed instead of moving forward. Maybe.
No, actually, I was wondering, what did you think of Frank's death scene? Because I heard a lot of people say, like, oh man, that was, like, super awesome. Where I was just kind of like,
Let me scroll down my notes. Okay, so we're going to jump around. Let's just jump around. Frank's car is attacked by a Mexican cartel who are angry about Frank destroying the club where they were about to move drugs for a full year. This is a lot of money that Frank screwed them out of, so, Frank tries to play it like he has nothing to do with the clubs burning down, but since the Armenians got their weapons from the Mexicans know that Frank was pulling out for some kind of revenge rampage thing. They know Frank is responsible. Frank points out that he has $1 million in cash, and it's for the taking, a trade for his life. The Mexicans are willing to spare his life for $1 million, but they're going to leave him in the desert, which is as good as dead. $1 million doesn't buy me a ride back to town, Frank says. After this, one of the Mexicans asks for Frank's suit, meant as an insult to his dignity. What they don't know is that Frank has $3.5 million worth of diamonds in his suit. He's not the type of guy to suffer an indignity or give out $3.5 million. So I don't think he would have given up the suit either way. So,
right.
And the scuttlebutt over the suit leaves Frank badly wounded with a stab to the gut. Now, I've rewatched that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Vince Vaughn does a really good stabbed man. Because he screams fuck in a way it's pain. He's not. He doesn't cry out like a human being. He just screams fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So the diamonds in his jacket pocket are pressed into the wound, which is like this. It's a pretty nice shot, and you could probably read a lot into it, but whatever. And then as Frank walks through the desert, his life flashes before his eyes. His dad yells at him, blaming for his mother's disappearance and being scared of the dark. Moves on to Frank dealing with a black gang of kids who told him they'd fuck his shit up, Larry Bird. Stop and lie down. Fuck you, never lie down. And then the darkest chapter in this flashback is some man on his knees with a bloody nose asking forgiveness for Frank, trying to leverage his family, begging for his life. And this is, like, I guess Frank's moral code is laid down. It's like, I didn't put you here. It's not me. And then some vultures show up because Frank is super dead. And Jordan shows up, and that's how you really know that Frank's fucking dead. And she delivers, she delivers that line like, hey, you did it. You made it. You can rest now. He's like, no rest. Never stop moving. And she says, oh, babe, you stopped moving way back there. And I did like this. I think this little bit of imagery works. Like, it's not to the level of Rust having visions of birds making shapes and stuff like that, but it is with the hallucinations of a man dying in a desert. And it's a good farewell to Frank, who I'm not too troubled to see him die, not as much as I am with Ray. But yeah, I didn't dislike this scene at all, really. I would have been happier, and I might have... It's hard to call it... It's hard to say it would have been better television if Frank had made it out scot-free. But a part of me would have felt like everything mattered more if everyone made it to Venezuela in one piece.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so you didn't like the scene, I reckon.
I
right?
mean, it wasn't like it's an interesting idea for a death scene. Like it felt very Breaking Bad to me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, what?
No, I agree.
Yeah, I just don't think that it was like, did Frank like necessarily deserve that death scene? Did it deserve to be in this season of the show? Like, I don't know. I don't know that I care for Frank's like ghost to come back and talk to him as he's dying. I don't. It felt like weirdly indulgent of a death scene for people like, like you figure Paul, he gets like that big, shootout thing, and then he just, bursts, just shoots him, and he dies. And even Ray, he just dies. But Frank somehow gets like this long,
I think
out.
Frank, if we look back and if someone actually calculated who has the most screen time, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Frank. Really.
Yeah.
And actually, while we're on Frank, if we'll kind of string notes together somehow. His first scene in this episode is one of those ones I can't defend how long Frank and Jordan talk about. How long Frank has to spend convincing Jordan to go is like kind of insufferable. Like, it makes total sense. Like, that is Jordan's character. Jordan would never just run away from Frank without putting up a fight. But it's just a lot. And then I have what I called heavy-handed moment number 1, which is where Frank and Jordan talk about how they're going to meet in Venezuela, with Jordan wearing a white dress and Frank wearing a suit with a red rose.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was just like, gosh, I wonder if Frank's going to stain a white shirt with his own blood. Emily, what did you think?
I mean, I didn't necessarily think that that's what it was going to be, but it totally makes sense right now. There's almost an appalling amount of sense.
There's something, a comment I really liked was, in response to Ray's death, what happened with Ray is kind of like if a middle school kid was taught the literary technique of foreshadowing and completely missed the point.
Yeah.
Because Frank's post-blackout hallucination of his dad telling him that he was going to get shot in the woods, it's way less cool when it's literal. And going in when Ray was going into the woods, I thought, oh, okay, these are the woods from the prophecy, but he's not going to go down exactly like what happens in his dream. He's going to defy the prophecy, and that's what's going to make it cool. Or like Ray's going to find out that he didn't need Paul by his back. He is kind of a badass by himself, but not really. And like the shining light in the woods for Ray is that his death and the amount of time he's distracted Burris means that Annie is almost definitely out of the country. But I didn't like that Ray's death was foreshadowed. Not even foreshadowed, like we basically should have been like from the description that Ray's father gave him in the woods, we could have been shown Ray's death in that episode for all it mattered. Like if he had a vision of him being shot in the woods and it was the exact shot we got in the finale, I kind of would have been like, all right, they showed us his death instead of trying to play it off like this was some like meaningful thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Were you frustrated by that?
I mean, yes. I can't say that I was necessarily frustrated about it, over all of everything was just a general frustration, I feel like, with this episode. So yes, I was frustrated.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I'm kind of deleting notes as I go along. So we went from almost 3,000 to 2,100 now. I thought this was a too little too late thing, was Nails getting a cool backstory.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have really I would have appreciated this earlier because you didn't really know who Nails was for very long. So the backstory was that he got his name because Frank found him shot in the head with a nail gun from a teamster shot him, I guess. Which I guess that means union problems, right?
Yeah.
Which, okay, I guess it explains, Frank mentions busting unions or something like that. And part of me is like, okay, maybe that explains why Nails is a little slow to speak and quiet. But it gave me a sense of respect or fear for the guy, because a guy with that much devotion means it when he says no one's going to get near her. And maybe that's why the story comes at that point, because it gives us a sense of security. Like when Nail says no one's going to hurt Jordan, he means it, she's safe in Venezuela.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm deleting some stuff about Burris talking to Ray at the scene of Paul's murder. I'm just deleting stuff about Burris trying to offer Ray protection. I mean, I thought that was a good beginning to an episode. Like Ray and Annie just come off from having sex and they find out Paul dies. And the race, I guess I anticipated Ray and Annie kind of having to race against the clock against Burris and Holloway, but I don't know, that didn't really matter. This is where in my notes I come to heavy-handed moment number 2. It's where, when scrambling to get their things together, Ray just suddenly puts together that the set photographer talked to Erica and realizes his name was Lenny Tyler or whatever. I mean, so this happened so fast, and I was just like, Reddit users took longer to piece this shit together, and they could freeze frame and rewind and stuff, and I didn't buy that Ray put that together so quickly. And yeah. So, and then the third heavy-handed moment is they Ray and Annie go to Lenny's house, and immediately there's the Raven's mask, the white mask from the car arson, and the shotgun with a magnifying glass conveniently over the less lethal rounds cartridge. And I was like, oh gee, that's really nice that he used those shotgun rounds months ago at this point, and they're still just sitting there underneath I guess Leonard and Laura just never cleaned up or put away any of their what would you even call it? That's all incriminating stuff. And they just have it in their back room. So yeah. And one of the things that was funny in the notes was we kept going back and forth between Erica and Laura.
Yeah.
So she was left handcuffed on the fireplace by Lenny for trying to stop him from killing Chief Holloway. And we get this backstory, which I didn't dislike, and I guess right now this is a good part to talk about just Leonard and Laura in general, because Laura is a gender-swapped Oedipus Rex.
Yeah.
So Laura worked the streets after running away from the foster care system. Through Tasha, she started attending Tony Tasani's parties, and she met Ben Casper. Tasha told Laura about Casper's blue diamonds, and when she met Casper, she recognized him as a friend of her deceased mother's. Somehow, and I don't buy this still, she dyed her hair red, and Casper didn't recognize her as the girl he was having sex with at these parties, hired her as his secretary for 6 months or 6 weeks. I don't know. Until one day, Erica, Laura, whatever, she drugs Casper, lets Lenny inside the bungalow, not the mansion, which means that it was Burris, Holloway, and I guess Teague who were rummaging through the mansion for the diamonds. And when Lenny gets inside Casper's secret house, he's furious about the sex stuff in Casper's house, and the thing that blows him up, I guess he figures out that Casper was having sex with his sister, and that was enough to enrage him and take him from using acid to torture Casper to revenge killing him. So it's just like, so this is all, like, you're ashamed that Casper had sex with your sister, or as he says later, like, they turned my sister into a whore. Like, it's just like, it's a really lame motivation for all this. Like, if it were just parent killing revenge, I feel like that's something I can get behind, but I'm so angry about the sex you're having with my sister. Now I gotta murder you.
Yeah.
And anyway, so like Lenny agrees to exchange Casper's empty hard drive for the blue diamonds from Holloway. And so his plan is to just murder Holloway because the hard drive is empty, whatever. So Ray goes to stop Lenny, ordering Annie to stay with Laura. So they can get, so their plan is to give her to the authorities since they got her testimony on an iPhone. I don't know if that's actually... I feel like Annie and Ray are really stretching here.
Yeah, I have I feel like everything, again, just got so convoluted, and like, whereas I think they tried to make this, whereas last season was like pretty straightforward, I think that this season they tried to make like too like twisty turny, and like, you know, even just like the exchange of the hard drive for the diamonds, I was just like, it didn't need to be as complicated as they made it, I think.
And Holloway brought fake diamonds.
Yeah.
So like this was always a disaster. I mean, everything was a disaster plan. Really.
Yeah.
Like everything fucking fell apart. Like Annie undoes the whole testimony thing by freeing Laura. And by doing that, I just don't know. It's just like, so it completely ruins your iPhone testimony if you send her to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, she's already thrown away. Like it almost doesn't matter that Ray's recording got destroyed in the train station shootout. Like, even if they had that recording of Holloway Holloway admitting everything, like they let Annie let go of the other person involved in all of this. Yeah. So the next notes, if kind of in order. Ray shows up in a cowboy costume to confront Lenny about his plan to murder Holloway. Don't know why Lenny had to turn out to be so fucking lame. Murdering Casper basically because he had kinky sex with his sister and turned my sister into a whore. Ray tries to convince Lenny that suicide by cops isn't the way to go, insisting that they bring Holloway and Burris to light. Lenny is skeptical, saying they'll never be punished. I am the blade and the bullet, like the type of loser he is. Ray convinces him off camera to try things his way. Ray meets with Holloway, tells him he killed Lenny Osterman, has backups with a hard drive ready to hit the cloud, which really, boy, that would have been nice. Holloway shows his blue diamonds, but admits they were plastic, expecting to have a phony arrangement with Casper's killer. Ray also sells the idea that Bezzarides and Woodrow both didn't like him, both thought he killed Davis, and were convinced that Ray was working with Holloway all along. He says, "Too bad you weren't. Honestly, Ray, nobody had any idea you were this competent." And a part of me, when I was taking the notes, I was wondering, why didn't Ray ever get the notice? Like, I guess it's because they thought he was incompetent, but they put things in the hand of Teague. Or, I mean, I guess Teague wasn't on their side because Teague was trying to blackmail him. But it's just like, then why didn't you fish in Ray? Like they had to have known that, like, if there was a rumor about Ray killing his wife's rapist, then they had to have known he was dirty. I doubt that nobody knows his connections with Frank. So it's just, I wonder why nobody contacted Ray. Seems like they could have, I don't know. Holloway lays out Ray's only exit, blame Bezzarides, an idea that future Governor Rick Geldof already likes. Ray asks one last question, why execute the Ostermans instead of just stealing the diamonds? Holloway says that Osterman had been having an affair with Ben Casper for years. She was pregnant and had information that Ben didn't want getting out, Holloway mentions that Casper didn't want a second child, let alone his first, Laura Osterman, his illegitimate daughter. Upon learning that Laura is just a gender-swapped Oedipus Rex, Lenny goes crazy and tries to stab Holloway to death. Burris opens fire, trying to kill Ray. Annie opens fire, disarming Burris and creating chaos. The stampede of people destroys Ray's tape recorder, erasing whatever chance he had at releasing a confession from Holloway. In Lenny's attempt to kill Holloway, Holloway manages to reach his gun and put 3 or more bullets into Lenny, killing him. But the LAPD, in spectacular fashion, release a storm of bullets into both the white male assailant and the black victim. That was one joke I saw more than once, and it's kind of on point. Like, the police see 2 people in a fight and just shoot both of them. Just fill both of them with bullets. And it's not really a satisfying way to see a villain get killed. Like, he was killed by accident, or the police assumed they were both bad. Like, I don't know. I guess by this point, I had seriously not given up on the finale yet. Do you think you had by this point?
Yeah.
Because at this point, I guess I was still riding on, like, oh man, like, Ben was fucking his daughter, and then his daughter unwillingly set things in motion that led to her father's death. And I was like, I guess at that point I wasn't even thinking about the Oedipus connection, even though Nick Pizzolatto had been, he's been like talking up a storm about that shit, right? Like, I was inspired by that or wanted to write that. Yeah, I guess at this point I threw away the idea that anyone was going to get caught. And it was gearing up for, all right, like, okay, the recording's gone. You're still public enemies, number 1 and 2. And, we return to the Black Rose, of which we know, is Felicia's, like, it's like Frank's secret, like, safe house.
Yeah, there was
it's where he has all these weapons.
There was a lot of sad bar singer in this episode. Like, she hadn't been on in weeks, and I feel like they were trying to make up for that in this episode. It was too much.
She had, like, 3 songs.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I have, like, Laura Lynn or whatever her name is gets another song. It's like Lara Lynn or something like that,
yeah,
right?
Lara Lynn.
It's funny. I made this point in my notes, which was to all the people who thought in episode 1 and 2 that, like, the songs from the trailer should have been the main theme. I'd be like, you'd be fucking enraged if you heard Lara Lynn this many times in a show.
Oh, agreed.
Like if sad guitar followed us everywhere we went. Like, it's just...
Agreed.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the people who in the first episode, I was like, man, why wasn't that, like, my least favorite Life song, the theme song? Because it was awesome.
Yeah. And you had no idea that it was going to be, like, the cricket in the back, and, like, just...
Yeah.
Just in the background of every scene.
Yeah, because, like, I did genuinely end up liking the theme song that they picked, and the opening credits and whatever, but... I mean, if they had like, anything by Lara Lynn as the theme song, it would have been too, like, overwhelmingly dark. Like, it would have been almost like a parody at that point. Like, because everything was just... I think, too, everything in this episode was just so grim. I don't know. And
at this point, I was still riding high. I was still thinking, like, okay, Frank and Annie have their first scene. Ray, I think, is it Annie and Felicia start talking? Felicia gets a cool backstory about, like, Ray putting the man who hurt her in prison in the disabled wing. Frank put Felicia in charge of a bar, gave her a lot of money with no return date. A part of you in that is like, oh, cool. Frank and Ray have been maybe righting wrongs for years, and there's just like this moment where, like, you're like, okay, like, you're at the Black Rose. You have a cache full of weapons, and then, like, they take out Osip and the Catalyst guys so easily by pumping it full of tear gas and shooting everyone. And, like, you have some really good Ray and Annie scenes too, where, like, they're together, and would you run if I asked you to? You're like, I just might, but, like, they can run away with, like, $6 million, and I don't know if it's the message isn't that greed gets you in the end. That's not the message. Like that's not what gets Ray killed. It's his love for his son. I guess money might get Frank killed, but I guess what I was built up to with the Black Rose thing was just really a bummer. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's not what Pizzolatto wanted to write.
right.
What I wanted to see was an action movie in this last 90 minutes.
Yeah, and it just wasn't good. It was not good.
Like, I don't know. Imagine if that scene in the woods went differently and like Ray still had like a grenade or something and just, Burris and these fucking military guys thought they had the upper hand on like a drunk cop.
Mm-hmm.
And if Ray just had like a fucking machine gun and a grenade and shit, like if Ray just had some leftover, I mean, I guess he had a shotgun and a pistol, but if he still had a fucking arsenal.
Yeah.
I look at these notes and I really don't know.
Right, like what's the point?
I'll visit this. Like, I like that Ray
and
Annie.
Like, what even else is there to talk about? Like, I feel like it's just, it's just not. Doesn't have a point.
I like the line. I can lose these assholes with a tricycle. I like that. I like that Ray cares enough for Annie to like. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to try to get back. I'm just going to kind of go on I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna lead these guys as far away from Annie as possible, mm-hmm. and I'm gonna try to send a message to my son. Mm-hmm. Like he does things that matter to him in that last moment. Like I guess Ray goes out, I guess, as much as he can go out.
Mm-hmm.
Frank getting killed by the Mexicans is a thing that's frustrating. Mm-hmm. It's a thing that I feel like he could have seen coming. Like he has such everything else is handled pretty well, but like he's got nothing. He's got no way of dealing with the Mexicans. He never thinks to make a deal with them. Like, does he need $3.5 million in diamonds? Can he? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Could he have let them know, like, hey, I'm doing some. No, I guess that doesn't make sense either. But like,
yeah.
I don't know. We are going on like an hour of what must be like the most exhausted sounding podcasting, but we don't need to fake it either.
Right. Okay, so I mean, I have a question for you.
There's the voiceover. Oh, ask a question.
So, like, kind of just moving away from like just the plot of the show, I guess. Like, do you think that there will be a season 3 of True Detective?
I think there will be.
I think so too. What do you think that season 3 needs to do in order for it to be like watchable and good and like?
Okay. Here's an idea that I'm borrowing from that Bald Move podcast. Mm-hmm. Is that it needs to return not to like Corey Fukunaga exactly, mm-hmm. but he needs to return to a one director system.
Yeah, I agree.
They were talking about how inconsistent performances and inconsistent, like the episodes being like let's say Vince Vaughn, like everyone's performances being inconsistent and it not being beautiful every episode.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Like those are things that you can maybe fix with like if there was one director. Mm-hmm. Here's something I'm thinking might be like my best case scenario for the future of True Detective. Mm-hmm. If it's just a 3-season show, I mean, I don't know, but a part of me hopes that, and gosh, I don't really know the guy that well, so I kind of feel bad for saying this, but a part of me kind of hopes that Pizzolatto walks away from this, and that somebody else takes a crack at writing an 8-episode cop-driven, detective-driven miniseries, because, either he shares the responsibility with someone else, or you give someone else a swing at this. Because, what's the worst that happens if you give it to somebody else?
Right. I don't think that he will.
I don't think he can do worse than this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll regret those fucking words, but
yeah. I think that just what this next upcoming season needs is to be, pared down, to be more streamlined, and to just have some more time spent on the writing of it and hopefully editing of the scripts. And I agree, like the one director system. I think that is something that this season was missing.
Maybe 8 episodes is, if maybe 8 episodes is too much, or like you gotta tell, you gotta look at this and go like, hey, look, instead of making the finale 90 minutes, which we sell the episode being 90 minutes as a feature, but it really just means there were bloated episodes before.
Yeah.
A part of me is thinking about, I mean, it'd be really hard to do, I guess, because I'm not magic, but like, the right editor could have maybe made this 6 episodes.
Yeah.
It's the same way I came out of watching Blue is the Warmest Color thinking, if I had an editing tool, I mean, maybe you could do it with Windows Movie Editor, but like, I feel like you can take an hour out of that movie. I feel like maybe you can take an hour out of this show.
Yeah, at least.
Because I don't know. Hey, look, here's a thought. Did Annie's going to sexual harassment mean anything? I think she would have been roped into the special unit even if she was still a state.
Agreed. And it was a good scene. It was an entertaining scene, but yeah, it didn't actually contribute anything to the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did I hear correctly that we have a listener email?
We do have a listener email.
And it's not even from a family member.
No. This one's from Maurice Biggio. You remember we might have read fan mail from Maurice back in like it might have been like this one of our last Sea Brigade things, I think.
Yes, I think his name might be pronounced Morris. It could be.
Morris?
Well, yeah. Because if he's from England, it's probably Morris, but who knows?
We've definitely had this discussion before.
Yes,
I don't know if it's going to drive him crazy. Here we go. Hi, Ken and Emily. Just wanted to weigh in with some observations about Season 2. I thought Season 1 was overpraised, but I gave it a passing grade for the performance from the 2 leads, Matthew and Woody, were mesmerizing. So I was looking forward to Season 2. I mean, I generally like Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams, and I thought, how bad could it be? The answer is bad. Very bad. Pure, unadulterated crap bad. I have to admit, since episode 2, I have been hate watching this show. I kept waiting for it to lift. Instead, it sank with the weight of its own pretentiousness. That is 8+ hours of my life I won't get back. I blame Pizzolatto for writing some of the most stilted and laughable for the wrong reasons dialogue I've heard in recent memory. Won't be reading any of your books anytime soon, Nick. Everyone in this overly complicated story with schools of red herrings is either damaged beyond likability or dead. Who cares? If there is a Season 3, I'm not sure I will be watching. There are so many better shows on TV these days. Cheers to you two for being brave enough to do your due diligence to the season. I would have given up so long ago. Bring on Broadchurch Season 3. Sincerely, Maurice Biggio, Montreal, Canada.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, really good piece of fan mail, really good points. I love the part about there being a school of red herrings.
Yes.
That was something that didn't happen in Season 1. I wasn't pointing the finger at every person who had screen time.
Right.
That's exactly what I was doing in this season.
Okay, so what I will say is that I think that Season 1 had red herrings that people made up. Like, people were really upset at the end, from what I judged from the reactions, because, again, neither of us watched it in real time, was that people were really upset that, like, people came up with all these sorts of crazy theories that, like, Marty's kids were, like, abused by the cult, and, like, maybe Maggie's dad was, like, in the cult. It's just, like, weird stuff. Right. And people were furious that it didn't come to pass, but, like, that was people looking too far into the show. Whereas, I think in this season, it was, like, literally red herrings in the show.
I will say, so it's kind of late. You won't get anything out of listening to it now, I don't think. But the entire time we were podcasting about True Detective Season 2, I was also listening to the Bald Move True Detective podcast. And one of the things those guys engage in that we don't is that kind of deep digging. And like they were figuring out things about bull gods and cults, and like they were finding lots of occultist evidence that your normal viewer wouldn't see. And even people on Reddit I wasn't really finding were like bringing up these types of theories. But I think it's the type of thing where I wonder if it's the show's fault. I don't blame the show for not being as a cult as it might have suggested it was in season 1.
Right.
I just think some things are coincidence, or some things exist to be creepy or to, I don't know, like Marty's interaction with his father-in-law. I thought a part of that was like rust was starting to bleed into him, right? Wasn't that part of like?
Well, yeah. I
mean,
mean,
he started talking about how like it doesn't matter, or you're gonna die or grow old or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm trying to think about. I mean, I guess I kind of forget where this all started. Oh, it was with the red herring stuff, right? I don't think the show. Season 1, if people found too many red herrings, I don't know if it was really the show's fault. There were plenty of reasonable reasons why certain people existed. And I don't know. In this season, it just felt like everyone you talked to, like no one felt clean. Like the director of the movie, people thought was a dig at Corey, like Fukunaga, and he was at these parties, so you thought maybe he was the killer. The photographer,
yeah,
like everyone had things that were just kind of off. And we might have had this discussion before, but without any prepared thoughts, what do you think would be your ideal season 3? Where does it take place? Who would you hire?
Where does it take place and who would I? Oh my gosh. I don't know enough about like the areas of America that are not like metropolitan. Because like I don't think I would have ever said that like my ideal setting for a TV show would be rural Louisiana. But it was. I think it's just anywhere where it's going to be really where they're going to return to being really just steeped in the culture. I mean, like, yeah, people have made the argument that season 2 was, but I think that part, like, at the end, when they're in Venezuela, I was kind of just like, all right. Like, we kind of totally got away from what, season... I mean, again, it doesn't have to be so sticking to the landscape that season 1 was, but, like, season 1, so much of it, Louisiana was a character, whereas California, I feel like kind of... It almost could have happened anywhere where, like, scandals were happening. So I think I would like for it to be somewhere that's maybe not so explored. And just anywhere where we're going to be immersed in the culture. I think what I want to see is... I would say no more than, like... I would say a maximum of, like, 3 lead characters. I would prefer 2 again.
Yeah.
But I could, 3, whatever, fine. I don't think I want to go the route of, like, gangsters again, but I don't think that they will. I would like to see another female lead. It's really hard to say what my ideal is, because I don't know. I'm just looking for something that's well written.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like... Do you think Nick Pizzolatto wrote like a good closeted gay character?
No.
Like, are some of these characters? I mean, like he did pretty all right with Annie. Honestly.
Annie was a really great character, like a really, really great character.
A part of me looks at the ending and wonders if he was overcompensating for you don't treat your female characters well enough, because you had Jordan and Annie as like the only survivors, kind of walking badassly through Venezuela. I'm like, they're both. I mean, I like both of them, but this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Was Annie fathering a child? I mean, Annie did need something to live for. Like, what was she going to do in Venezuela by herself, or with Jordan, who she never met?
Right.
and she doesn't know Frank or even like gangsters. So
Yeah. Oh shoot, I just had oh yeah. Something else makes me really annoyed in hindsight is that Frank and Jordan's fertility storyline meant literally nothing. Literally nothing.
Just thematic. It was thematic garbage.
Exactly. It was utter garbage. Utter filler.
Like Pizzolatto, like if he picked a deck of cards, and this is a thing that exists. I saw it on Kickstarter. Like if you're struggling, if you got writer's block, and you pick a number of themes from a deck of cards and tell yourself, I have to use these themes. He picked Greek tragedy, fatherhood and maybe fertility, and he stayed the fuck on those themes, but it didn't make for a good detective show.
No, and it was just a really weird preoccupation with fertility. It was strange.
You know what? If you gave me, because I can't do it on the spot, I can't name actors who I'd like to see. For some reason, my mind is stuck on Elijah Wood. No idea why. But like, because I can't really see him as a fucking detective. But in my head, if you I'm thinking Southwest America, maybe like a Native American reservation for some reason. Maybe an actor or an actress of color. But in my head, a really good pairing, because True Detective being the show that has all-star casts is kind of a weird. What show prides itself on every season when we get movie stars to do? Like, what show does that? Like, it's True Detective. So, a part of me would kind of like to see, like, pair one movie star. Pick one film actor, and then go back to, like, choose a TV actor, like a character actor who can do a cop, but like give that cop something interesting. Like just write an interesting cop. Don't necessarily give it to an interesting person. Like I really liked Woody Harrelson and McConaughey. I liked Colin Farrell in this. It kind of makes me want to go see some Colin Farrell stuff because I really can't think of what I've seen him in. I think Vince Vaughn, he had some bad dialogue given to him, but I think in the end he showed that he can do drama. Rachel McAdams, excellent. Taylor Kitsch, I think, comes up on the short end. He's cool in action scenes.
Yeah.
I would see an action movie with him, I guess. I don't know what he was in or what he's from, but like, I don't know. Give me, like, you know, put a known face on the poster and then some unknown face who does good. You know, get a good actor who, because I don't know, was like Kit Harington. He's not a known guy before Game of Thrones, but you know, and of course, I mean, I guess he has years to develop, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Put David Tennant and Olivia Colman and.
Of course.
Oh. A part of me would kind of die of laughter if we did a True Detective Season 3 podcast starring David Tennant before we got to watch Broadchurch Season 3. I mean, it might end up being the case. We have no idea when Broadchurch Season 3 is coming.
That'd be pretty nuts.
But, you know, at the sake of rambling, I mean, this might be the last Sea Brigade for a bit. I don't know when Fargo starts, but...
I think it's October.
Really?
I believe.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, because I have to keep paying for
October 12th. October 12th.
Okay. Well, I have to keep paying for podcast hosting, so we're going to watch in the meantime. Have you seen the trailer for David Simon's new HBO show?
I have not, although I still haven't watched The Wire.
You don't need to watch The Wire to watch this.
I know, but I feel like I should probably watch or I don't know. We could watch the new one. I don't know.
It's a mini series about, I think, Oscar. The guy.
Well, it looks like Oscar Isaac is in it.
Yeah, I wanted to say Oscar Isaac. That name just didn't in my head. It's the guy from the new Star Wars. It's the guy from that movie you like about the folk singer.
Yes.
He's also in Drive.
Yes.
Which is really good. He's a good actor. I like him.
Yeah, I like him a lot too.
I would watch that miniseries and podcast about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Maybe.
I know we also talked about doing like the BBC Casanova for like whatever reason.
Yeah, no, I would still do that. Well, because
Yeah,
it
I would
has
do it
David
too.
Tennant in it.
Yeah.
You want to return to some David Tennant? I
Yeah,
feel like I can go for some
we
David
could.
Tennant.
We could.
Take a break from HBO
We
for a
could.
bit. Would podcasting about The Wire keep you going through it, you think? Or would that be too much?
Sorry,
Would podcasting about The Wire, would that be too much?
I don't know what we would like. Would people
Talk
listen
about?
to our podcast about The Wire? Like, I don't know. It's it's a pretty old show.
Yeah. Well, Casanova is going to be a pretty old thing to watch too.
Yeah, but that would just be like kind of like a one-off thing where we would just like talk about like the series.
You're right.
You know,
Yeah.
unless we did like a thing where I don't know how I would get through all of The Wire in like however long, but
In October,
like-
you could. That would be a bit much. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I took a class on The Wire. Wire's a great show. If you're listening to
it
this,
is fabulous.
you should watch The Wire.
don't have time. Yeah, do it.
I mean, if you're watching True Detective, you have access to HBO somehow. Watch The Wire. It's not overrated. It lives up to the hype.
Yeah.
Yeah. My gosh. I'm thinking about things that I've watched recently. I watched the musical Chicago. We could podcast about Chicago.
No, thank you. Big Lebowski. I watched the Big Lebowski recently and like absolutely loved it. I'd never seen it before. That was hysterical.
My God. You know what? We could podcast about the first season of Fargo, but just like a one-off thing.
We could do like a Coen Brothers podcast.
That's the thing. I was thinking, like, I need to watch the movie Fargo.
Yeah, you've never seen it.
But you never saw the Big Lebowski until like a week or two.
That's
ago,
true, but
and
I
I've
did
seen
see the
it.
Big Lebowski. You have not seen Fargo.
Yeah. How about In the meantime, maybe become like a Coen Brothers Brigade.
We could. I know. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is on
I've never seen
HBO
that.
Go now.
And
Inside Llewyn Davis is on Showtime anytime.
The Simpsons parodied that, I think. The
Oh Brother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Barney? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're not going to ramble on anymore, but I do like the idea of maybe just watching Coen Brothers movies.
And then we could do like a Fargo season 1 primer. Although I would like to watch season 1 again, although I don't know exactly how.
Yeah. What network was it on? FX?
It was on FX, but I don't think it's on like their FX streaming thing. But I really want to watch it again, and I don't want to like buy it or download it illegally.
You might have to. I'm going to go ahead. I mean, okay, you could buy it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. That's one way of buying things legally.
Yeah.
And their streaming's okay. Once you buy it, you can stream it for life. Until Amazon, I don't know, disappears.
Yeah.
Until Amazon disappears like an AI into the cloud and just never comes back. All right.
Farewell. That
was the very weird ending to our True Detective Season 2 podcast.
Yeah, it shows how much we cared about it, right?
I mean...
It was just like I just got fed up. Like it was just
the show did it to itself.
Yep.
I mean, and look, like it was this close to being the action movie ending that I wanted, and I would have if Frank, Ray, and Annie shot up the police department in Vinci and killed Burris. And they shot up Osip and they shot up Candace and they went to the Chasani mansion and killed the mayor and they killed Tony. Mm-hmm. If they just went on like a Godfather-esque killing rampage and they got to Venezuela and lived happily ever after and you didn't like that, I would be like, Emily, get off my podcast. No. But like that's the ending I know that probably sounds so childish.
Agreed.
But that's the ending that would have made me go, okay, there was no possible way, no legal way to bring these people to justice. So you had to go on a Godfather. So,
man, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. And in the end, Frank's fatal flaw was not having an ethnicity-based gang, because I guess in the end, those are the only gangs that stick together. Ray had to see his kid. I guess Annie got over her fatal flaw. And Paul never came out, so you get killed, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the... Yeah.
Man, I don't know.
Well, you know what? Send us some fan mail to cheer us up.
Yeah, please do so. Please do so. Tell us why we're right or tell us why we're wrong.
If we got 3 pieces of fan mail, I would record another podcast to fill up the August bandwidth space.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.